Welcome to the Quick Bites series from the Insurance Domain Training Center. In this video, we will cover Topic 3 of the mock interview for the Information Technology Business Analyst position. This video focuses on Agile for Business Analysts.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's explainer, Agile for Business Analysts. We're doing something highly practical today. We are going to step directly into a business analysis basics mock interview. I'll be taking on the role of your interviewer to really assess those core Agile methodology skills, and we'll hear how a top-tier candidate responds. All right, let's step into the interview room and get started. Welcome. Please have a seat. Today, I'm going to be thoroughly assessing your knowledge of Agile methodologies, specifically looking at things from a business analyst perspective. We'll be walking through several real-world scenarios together. So let's just start right at the basics, shall we? To kick things off, could you explain to me what exactly a user story is in Agile? And more importantly, why is it so vital for a project success? Absolutely, and thank you for having me. Basically, a user story is a very short, simple description of a feature, but it's written strictly from the end user's perspective. We typically follow a standard format. As a specific type of user, I want a certain goal so that I get a specific benefit. And it's incredibly important because it anchors the entire development team to what the user actually needs, rather than just getting lost in technical specs. Spot on. I completely agree. So if we break that concept down a bit further, what are the specific key components that actually make up a properly written user story? Right, so let's dive into this. There are fundamentally 4 components we always need to include. First up is the role, which tells us exactly who the user is. Second is the goal, detailing what they actually want to achieve. Third is the benefit, explaining why they need it in the first place. And finally, and this is crucial, the acceptance criteria. These are the strict conditions that must be met before we can officially mark the story as complete. That makes perfect sense, but practically speaking, anyone can quickly write down a story. How do you ensure your user stories are actually effective? And how exactly do you go about defining that completeness you just mentioned? Well, to create truly effective stories, I always apply the INVEST criteria, right alongside constant team collaboration. That means the story must be independent, negotiable, valuable, estimable, small, and testable. For me, the most crucial balancing act here is making sure a story is small enough to comfortably fit into a single sprint while still being valuable enough to deliver a real, tangible benefit to the user. And regarding completeness, that is exactly where those acceptance criteria come back into play. These are the highly specific conditions that have to be met for a user story to be considered done. They're absolutely vital because they clearly define the exact scope, they ensure everyone has a shared understanding, and they give our QA team a solid, direct baseline for their test cases. Excellent. Now, writing good criteria requires really solid input. What specific techniques do you personally use out in the field to actually gather the necessary information for these stories? I rely on a mix of techniques, really depending on the scenario. I'll frequently conduct collaborative workshops and brainstorm with stakeholders to get that big picture view. But honestly, I also love to literally shadow actual users just to understand their daily workflows firsthand. From there, I can build realistic user personas to capture their true motivations, and then I analyze existing system documentation to spot any hidden functional gaps we might have missed. That's a great hands-on approach. Let's shift the scale slightly now. There's often a bit of confusion for beginners on this next point. How does a user story fundamentally differ from an epic? Oh, for sure. The difference mainly just comes down to sizing and scope. You see, an epic is a massive, overarching requirement. It's simply too big to finish quickly, so it inherently spans across multiple sprints. A user story, on the other hand, is a granular, detailed piece of that epic, something we can comfortably design, build, and test within a single sprint. It's really all about taking these massive business objectives and slicing them down into perfectly actionable, bite-sized pieces. Okay, so once you have all of these highly granular stories mapped out, how do you ensure they actually stay aligned with the overall product backlog and the broader business vision? Alignment requires continuous monitoring. There's no set and forget. I ensure this through regular backlog grooming sessions. I actively map individual user stories right back up to their parent epics and those broader business objectives. It's all about maintaining strict traceability and, of course, constantly collaborating with the product owner to validate those priorities as things evolve. Let's consider a very common and sometimes stressful scenario. When you're faced with a heavily loaded backlog and very limited time, how do you prioritize those stories? When push comes to shove, I typically rely on established prioritization frameworks. The Moscow framework is fantastic for strictly categorizing features into must-haves, should-haves, could-haves, and won't-haves. I also really like using the Kano model to differentiate basic expected features from those that will truly delight the user. But ultimately, it almost always comes down to a fundamental value versus effort assessment, carefully weighing the direct business impact against the development time required to build it. Frameworks are great, but as we know, real-world projects are rarely perfectly simple. How do you handle complex dependencies between these prioritized user stories? Dependencies can definitely cause severe bottlenecks if you ignore them. I handle them by clearly identifying and documenting them very early on, usually during our backlog refinement sessions. From there, I make sure we sequence the stories so that any prerequisite work is tackled first, using visual tools like dependency matrices or just clearly mapping them out on our Kanban boards really helps the entire team easily see exactly what is blocking what. Drawing upon your own industry experience, what would you say are some of the most common and perhaps most damaging mistakes someone must avoid when writing user stories? Without a doubt, one of the absolute biggest mistakes is writing stories that are simply too large or complex for a single sprint. Another huge one is lacking clear acceptance criteria, which inevitably just leads to mass testing confusion down the line. Also, creating purely technical tasks, like, say, update the server configurations, and labeling them as user stories is a major error. They absolutely must be user-focused. Finally, writing requirements in a silo without continuous collaboration with stakeholders and devs is just a surefire way to fail. I couldn't agree more. All right, for my final assessment question today. Beyond just writing and prioritizing these stories, what is your specific role as a business analyst during the actual Agile ceremonies? As a BA, I view myself as the continuous bridge. During sprint planning, I'm there to clarify the user stories and answer immediate questions from the developers. In the daily stand-up, my job is to help unblock the team by providing rapid requirement clarifications. During the sprint review, I actively step in to help demo new features and gather crucial stakeholder feedback. And finally, in the retrospective, I champion process improvements, particularly focusing on how we can refine our requirements gathering for the next round. While that is an incredibly comprehensive breakdown, you've clearly demonstrated that a great business analyst doesn't just sit in a corner and write requirements. They effectively translate complex human needs into real collaborative action for the whole team. Thank you very much for your time today. This was a highly insightful interview. And scene. Welcome back from the interview room, everyone. As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with one final provocative question to reflect upon in your own day-to-day work. Are your user stories genuinely empowering your development team to build better solutions? Or are they really just dictating technical tasks in disguise? Take a hard look at your backlog today. Thank you so much for joining me to master these agile concepts, and I'll see you in the next explainer.
Thank you for watching the Quick Bite series from www.insuedot.com. Please like and subscribe to our videos for you to get notification when we upload new videos.